For ion quiz 3, many of the ions follow the same set of rules as before. I'll remind you, arsenide is right here. It is in the -3 column, so As minus 3. Arsenic, negative ending changes to IDE, just as you'd expect. Telluride, right here. Tellurium, because it's a negative, we change that ending to IDE. I'm going to skip over hydroxide and peroxide for just a second. Iodide, phosphide, and aluminum all follow the basic rules that we've learned. Iodide, -1 charge in the -1 column. Phosphide, -3 in the -3 column. Again, the endings iodine changes to iodide. If you write, remember for anything over here, if you write what it says, it will be wrong because their endings have to change. These are all negatives, and the negative endings change it. Aluminum, now that I've just said over here, aluminum would be an exception to the over here rule because it is in the +3 column. We do have one plus column. That first column over here is a +3 column, so we don't change the name aluminum Al +3. If you happen to be a foreign exchange student, please don't put an I in after the I. Aluminium, as they say it in Europe. We Americans just say aluminum. So these other two, hydroxide and peroxide, let's talk about those for just a sec. We'll start with peroxide. Peroxide, you'll notice, looks a lot like oxide. Oxide is O, -2 charge. Peroxide is O2 and -2 charge. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. We have the word hyper here. Hyper means elevated or more. If someone is hyperactive, they're really, really active, more active than normal. And so in that sense, peroxide, hyperoxide, if you will, is elevated, has elevated amounts of oxygen. Rather than having an oxygen, it has two oxygens, that little subscript. That 2, I believe, is our first subscript. A subscript indicates how many of that atom are in the ion. Not all ions are monatomic. Not all ions have just a single atom in them. Some of them have more than one atom in it, as indicated by, in this case, a subscript to indicate that there are 2 of the oxygen atoms, or in the case of hydroxide, 2 capital letters. So let's remember what peroxide is. Peroxide is hyperoxide, but we like to save ourselves a little time by taking that high off of there. Save ourselves all sorts of time by not saying hyperoxide, just say peroxide. And that's where the word comes from. Per means extra oxygen. That's what, there'll be other ions as well that mean that as well. When we get to perchlorate, periodate, the per means elevated amounts of oxygen. There'll be 1 extra oxygen. The hydroxide is just what it sounds like. You see kind of the partial word hydrogen and the partial word oxygen there. So it's hydrogen and oxygen. It is OH though, not HO. So we'll always remember to put the O first. And the charges you can actually figure out fairly simply. Oxide has a charge of -2 and hydrogen has a charge of +1. When you put them together they have a charge of -1, which is where that comes from. And so that is the 3rd week ion quiz.